So today I'm going to be covering this video by Vox, Why the MCU Feels Empty. Because if there's anything the internet needs, it's more people doing that. And so what, I might be a little late to the party on this one, but that's nothing new for me. The video starts with the normal generic YouTube fluff.
The Marvel Cinematic Universe is overrated.
Oh my god, it looks and sounds like a VHS. I've not seen that in a million other places. It's almost as if they're trying to imitate actual good video essays by replicating the surface elements but without actually bringing anything of substance to the table.
Okay, so why is this not just a steaming pile of clickbait?
No, I'd say you've nailed that description there. Because what is clickbait? It's something designed to reel you in without delivering on any of the promises made in the title or thumbnail or whatever of the thing. And even as far as clickbait goes, this is bad clickbait because it doesn't even give the illusion that it's delivering on the promises it's made. I'm going to approach my coverage of this video in the logical way by skipping 3 minutes in. And that's because the video could literally start there and you wouldn't have missed anything of substance. Well, actually, the video could have started after it ended and you wouldn't have missed anything of substance, but still. I'll summarise the bits I skipped for you. Over a minute of today we're going to be talking about the MCU and how it feels empty, followed by an additional 2 minutes of background information that they don't bring up again at all. Thanks for that. Cool. So we're now a third of the way into the video and we've got the very important absolutely nothing out of the way. So now it's time to get to what is still basically nothing. Phil brings up the apparently groundbreaking theory that any show that's crossed over with any other show is in the same universe as that other show, meaning that if one show has crossed over with two separate shows, those two separate shows are also in the same universe, and that you can continue this until you've got a lot of connected shows. Wow, I'm so glad you spent literally a whole minute explaining that idea to me. We're now almost halfway through the video, and the only times you've actually mentioned the MCU, you know, the thing that this video is supposedly about, are times when you've gone, and soon I'm going to start talking about the MCU, I promise! I'm not to Rhino for this. We then get taken another minute through the video until we actually get to this sentence.
Frasier and the X-Files don't mix, even though they do in Tommy Westfall's Globe. But even at Marvel, where continuity was planned, it became a hassle to maintain.
Oh, we're now more than halfway through the video and you finally decided to mention the thing you're talking about. Well, okay, no, it's not the first time you've mentioned it, but this is the first time you've actually made a point about it. Everything else you've said about it up until this point has been alluding to the idea that soon you might start making some points. It's like this video was written by Stephen Moffat. What it's taken all of this time to deliver us is essentially a topic sentence. The Marvel Universe has had trouble maintaining continuity. If this is a well-structured video, this should answer the question you raised in your title. Why the MCU feels empty. Everything you say in the 4 minutes that follow should be justifications of this point. What you definitely shouldn't do is wait like another minute and then bring up an even bigger point. That would be ridiculous.
Iron Man kicked off the MCU in 2008. The universe exposition dump.
Whoa! Exposition dump? I mean, I know you're not going to justify that because I've seen this video before and I'm reading this from a script, but have you ever seen an exposition dump before? Do you know what one is? Because this isn't it.
The universe exposition dump didn't happen until after the credits.
Mr. Stark, you become part of a bigger universe.
Ant-Man required a weak excuse right in the middle of the movie.
I think our first move should be calling the Avengers.
I spent half my life trying to keep this technology out of the hands of a Stark. I'm sure as hell not going to hand deliver it to one now.
So this point appears to be that the waters have been muddied up with so many different characters that now you need flimsy excuses of why not to bring the other characters in on the solo adventures. And while that can happen, Marvel seems to have been pretty good at not doing that, at least in recent years. In Thor Ragnarok, other characters didn't get involved because everything was happening on Asgard or on Sakaar. In Black Panther, other characters didn't get involved because other characters didn't know what was going on. In Spider-Man Homecoming, other characters didn't get involved because they didn't consider the threat big enough to be worth their while, and also they did. Or if we look at the one you used, Ant-Man, Pym doesn't want to involve the Avengers because he doesn't want the technology he's using to fall into other people's hands, which, by the way, is literally the entire point of the mission they're on. It would be kind of pointless going on a mission to stop this technology from falling into the wrong hands if they invited people along who they considered to be the wrong hands and who were definitely going to want to use that technology. That clip you showed, that line, isn't an excuse. It's a summary of the reason that we're presented throughout the film, a reason that develops naturally as an integral part of the story.
These heavy-handed additions are about getting crossover hype, not about telling a good story.
These flimsily made points are about getting views, not about saying anything that's actually worthwhile, or even true.
But there's a bigger problem than continuity in the MCU, and there is a way to do it better.
Oh cool, so that's not the main point you're making either. The big point is yet to come. 2/3 of the way through.
Whoa, you're the Avengers!
The rest of this scene is a standard movie fight. Their universe is only as deep as some merchandise and a few Easter eggs. It's cool when Peter Parker's classroom has a picture of Bruce Banner in the corner, but it's not a transformed universe.
You know what? Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's not a transformed universe when the only connections you have to the other films are just minor Easter eggs. It's a transformed universe when the other fucking characters from that universe show up. And also, the entire plot only happens because of events from that universe. Not only limited to the villain's motivation, who is pissed off by the Avengers, but also the hero's motivation, who mainly just wants to impress them. Is the universe connected enough for you now, Phil? But no, you are right. If you ignore all of the parts where the universe is connected, then the universe isn't connected at all. Flawless. What a good argument. So glad I watched this video.
It's like Quentin Tarantino including the imaginary brand of Red Apple cigarettes in multiple movies. It's cool. It's not a coherent, intertwined world.
Yes, if only the Marvel standalone movies had more to connect them than just superficial Easter eggs. Wouldn't that be nice?
The MCU is like our own, except for the crossovers. You can test it with the characters. Add Aquaman to that poster. If you didn't know DC owned him, would anyone notice? The MCU has no rules, beyond corporate ownership. It's a superhero hodgepodge. The same goes for DC. If you added Hawkeye here, nobody would care. And not just because it's Hawkeye.
The MCU is a world that could fit in a huge variety of different characters. You could see characters like James Bond or Darth Sidious fitting in there naturally, and it wouldn't feel out of place. This is because everything in the MCU is so varied, and it would have to be to keep the attention of so many people for so many different films. No one's going to care after the 20th film if all of the films are about characters that are basically the same. The fact that any character could fit into this universe isn't a criticism, you're just presenting it as one. Until you actually explain how this detracts from the quality of the world, then it doesn't make things any better or any worse. It's just the way things are.
Marvel's own property, X-Men, with a movie universe owned by Fox and likely going to Disney, shows a better way. This universe is not just crossovers. Every character, human and mutant, has taken sides in a generations-long battle, with real stakes, unlike Marvel's Civil War.
The suggestion that you seem to be making, that Civil War doesn't have real stakes because the battle isn't generations long, is kind of silly. Because, well, that's not how stakes work. There are plenty of other ways to achieve high stakes. And if that's not what you're saying, you really need to justify that jab you've taken at Civil War there. I'm not saying you're wrong, necessarily. I mean, I think you are, but that's not what I'm saying. Just that that's not really the kind of thing you can really just leave hanging unless you're talking to people who already agree with what you're saying.
That leads to creative possibilities, like decade jumping and even tonal experimentation with deep integration to the X-Men mythology, if not the continuity.
These are not creative possibilities that don't exist in the MCU. Decade jumping could be done easily. But if only I had some kind of proof of that. Oh wait, Captain Marvel is going to be set in the 90s. Tonal experimentation is a possibility as well. I wouldn't say the MCU does much of it, and it's certainly not done any experimentation as extreme as the experimentation done in Logan. But you'd be pretty hard-pressed to argue that something like Guardians of the Galaxy wasn't a tonal experiment.
X-Men movies are not all good, but they do have a universal logic that is stronger than Tommy Westfall's snow globe.
Yes, and so does the MCU. We've already covered this. It's almost as if you're not listening to me.
Here's another test. If you, little old you, were in a movie, which universe would change you? In X-Men, you'd have to decide where you fell in a decades-long battle. Do you side with mutants or humans? In the MCU, you'd be like this kid in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Your big decision would be to buy some merch.
I'm okay.
I mean, I'd say the universe where there's a 50% chance I'm dead and probably a 100% chance that someone I care about is dead would affect me quite a lot, but that's besides the point. because the X-Men universe and the MCU are trying to achieve different things. Let's take the example you gave again. This time it was Civil War. The conflict in Civil War arises suddenly, when the conflict in the X-Men franchise has been going on for a long time. This doesn't make it worse or less involved with the rest of the universe, however. The conflict in Civil War, despite the fact that it arose suddenly, is still a natural progression of events from its universe. And the fact that it's not a continuation of the same conflict we've seen before doesn't mean it doesn't gel as well with the other films. Additionally, I'd bring up the point that the X-Men universe doesn't force people to choose a side on this issue. There are plenty of real-life political issues that I've not chosen a side in because I don't know enough about them.
Marvel has flirted with a richer universe, one in which the lives of all people are transformed by a shared history. But right now, would anybody be surprised if Disney forced a Marvel Star Wars crossover?
I mean, I'm sure at least a few people would probably be surprised by that.
Marvel and Disney can make the right choice. In the late 80s, the Marvel comic Damage Control toyed with the consequences of superhero life on the world at large. That made its cameo in Spider-Man Homecoming a thrilling indicator of where the MCU could go. It was a world that anybody could imagine themselves in. But until that experimentation transforms the movies, the MCU is just a business strategy. The universe is still in development.
In what way is Spider-Man Homecoming not transformed by that plotline? Your strategy to argue it has simply been to ignore all of these occurrences up until this point, until you acknowledge them during the time you're actually making your points instead of the time you're just wrapping up, so that you can actually explain why they're not good enough instead of just pretending they're not there. Then your arguments are terrible. It doesn't even matter if you're right, you've just not argued this well. There definitely are MCU movies that aren't integrated well into the rest of the universe, and if you were going to make this point well, maybe you would have brought a single one of them up. Instead, one of your main points was to say that Spider-Man Homecoming's integration was only as deep as Submerge, before waiting till the end of your video to use Spider-Man Homecoming as an example of what you actually want them to do. This would be like if in my video, responding to your video, I didn't bring up any of the actual points you made, and then I only acknowledged that you even attempted to make any kind of points at the end of my video, where I go, oh yeah, he also did make some points about Marvel, but that's not good enough. I would have to explain why. So next time, I was gonna say try harder, but I'll be honest, next time I won't be fucking watching.